Hey guys, today I want to talk about the differences between alternate day fasting and daily calorie restriction. I'll say, why would this be of interest? Well, because in the news today, I was reading about a story that was published on Monday. So this was published on May 1st in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And here's the title of the report. Effect of alternate day fasting on weight loss, weight maintenance, and cardio protection among metabolically healthy obese adults. Pretty long title there, but what it basically boils down to, a person of interest was involved in the study, which is what got me interested in it. The person was Christopher Virati, who wrote the book, The Every Other Day Diet, which this book has been, I think, most people's introduction to ADF and to her basic plan. There's not a lot of differences between her book and the book by James Johnson called The Alternate Day Diet. They're basically on the same page. He got his book out in 2008 and hers followed in 2013 and was more popular, so there's probably some bad blood between them. But anyways, so this came out. Here's what they wanted to know, basically. I'll boil it down for you. I read all 9 pages of the report. But I'll boil it down. I'll give you a synopsis here so you can be lazy and you don't have to read it yourself. What they were hoping to find out is that ADF is more effective at helping people lose weight than daily calorie restriction. I think that's really what they were looking at with this comparison. And what they found out is that it's really not. They found out they had 3 groups of people. They had a control group. They had a group that was doing daily calorie restriction, and they had a group that was doing ADF. And what they found out is that people lost weight at about the same rate at the end of a year, and that as long as they followed the plan, they kept the weight off. So a bunch of people on social media are freaking out about this because it turned out that ADF was, in terms of weight loss, was not more effective or less effective than just daily calorie restriction. So they're freaking out. There was one chick I saw that was like on Krista Virati's page going, I bought your book and I believed it and I believe the hype and now you're telling me all this negative stuff and now it's not going to happen. You know, I think people, dude, calm down, man. It's not, this is a way of eating, okay? This is not going to bring world peace. This is not going to fix all your problems. And I think people just need to chill out. You know, intermittent fasting it's on the rise. ADF is on the rise in terms of an approach that people are trying. But people like Krista Virati, who wrote The Every Other Day Diet, have always said, this is one tool in the box. This may work for you, but it's not going to work for everybody. And so it doesn't work for everybody. But you have to look, in terms of this study, people are really misinterpreting it. Like they're really looking at it very negatively. So that's what made me want to make a video about it, to give you my interpretation. They're really not looking at it carefully because all it measured, it focused strictly on weight loss. And it did try to look at other things. It says cardio protection. That means that they looked at cholesterol. They looked at blood glucose. But the problem was the people they started with were just fat. They weren't metabolically, in a state of disease. So if there's no changes on them, that's no big whoop. You know what I'm saying? Because they started out pretty healthy. They were just obese. So what do we make of all this? Well, a lot of people are saying, well, that are acting like it's thrown alternate day fasting into a bad light. And I think really quite the opposite, because it just focused on weight loss. Let's just use our heads here, okay? And let's compare these two approaches. Because every single person, probably adult over the age of 16, that's listening to the sound of my voice on YouTube right now, has tried daily calorie restriction. Calorie restriction as primary. Calorie restriction as primary. CRAP for short. Because it is what your doctor prescribes. It's what people talk about. They say portion control. They say reduce your calories. And what your target is supposed to be is about 25% less than you would eat on a normal day. Okay, so will that work to lose weight? Of course it will. We don't need a study. We don't need any studies to tell us that we can lose weight reducing our calories. There was a guy, you can look it up, in 2010, somewhere or other, and here in America, there was a guy, a nutritionist, who ate a convenience store diet for like 10 weeks. And I mean, he was eating Ho-Ho's, Ding Dongs, Suzy Q's, candy bars, meat tornadoes, all the crap, you know, that lines the shelves in a convenience store. That's what he was eating. He ate that for 10 weeks, and guess what? He lost weight. He lost like 27 pounds doing that. I remember after I saw Morgan Spurlock's movie, Super Size Me, that was all about the supposed evils of McDonald's food. There was a guy who went out, just to refute that movie, he went out and ate McDonald's and lost weight on eating McDonald's. Why? Because he had a calorie restriction. You know, he wasn't in there guzzling soda every day and eating like Morgan Spurlock. Anybody can gain weight at McDonald's if that's all you eat. We don't need that documentary ever again or anything stupid like that. But, so yes, calorie restriction works. And it's almost irrelevant what kind of food you eat if you're, you know, except that you can't eat much of it. You know, if you pick something that's really calorie dense, you can't eat much of it. But yeah, it will work. We all know that. What's the other thing that we all know? It doesn't work in the long run. Why? Because our willpower sucks. Because after a month or two of restricting ourselves and limiting our intake of foods we like and that we want to eat while people all around us are enjoying those great foods, something just snaps in us and says, I have got to have pizza. I've got to have a donut. I cannot live without a cheeseburger right now. And then, so the diet gets thrown off, and then like there's like this failure and this guilt that sets in, and then we're off the wagon. And what happens, we gain all the weight back plus a few pounds. We've all been through this and we know it. So, will you lose weight on either diet? Yes, but there are significant differences, and I want to talk about them right now. I'm an alternate day faster, so I am hungry occasionally. Once or twice on every fast day, I'll have a hunger pang, and some are more intense than others, and some will even be accompanied by weakness or fatigue. It's getting further, you know, further and further between. And it's not like it was in the first 2 weeks, but I still deal with hunger pangs. I still deal with those rumblings and grumblings. Here's the difference. If you're restricting your calories every day, you're hungry all the time. You're hungry all the time, even a lot of times after you just ate, because you're eating these tiny little teaser meals that never fully satisfy. And, you know, so you're hungry. You're obsessed with food all the time, or at least I was. You know, when I am on a fast day like I am today, I don't think about food. I don't think about whether I'm out of milk. I don't think about having to cook food. I don't think about, I don't have to dedicate any time at all in the kitchen. I don't even need to go in there unless I just want to get some of my cold, sparkly water or something like that. I don't even need to go in the kitchen. So I don't think about it. I'm not obsessed with it. I'm not craving anything. When you're on daily calorie restriction, you are obsessed with food. You have to think about it all the time because you're not at a point where, there's never a point where you stop eating, where you're like, oh, I don't even have to worry about it today. So your body can never get used to being without food. It's almost like your hunger is worse when you're teasing your body. When you're teasing your stomach, I think it's harder than just going without food completely. But not everyone would agree with that. But that's been my experience. So that's one advantage of alternate day fasting, is that you don't have to think about food. You don't have to, you can stay out of the kitchen. You can stay away from the tempting food. And if you're the mom in the house or the dad who has to cook dinner, you don't have to, you know, suffer through that because you're just not thinking about it. So like, and make a bunch of good food that you can eat that's for your kids. I've done that. You know, so my sense of restriction is only half the time. And that's the primary advantage to me of alternate day fasting. Why? Because that's what makes it, no matter what diet you go on, I don't care if you're eating 30 pounds of bananas a day, the bacon diet, I mean, I've heard all kinds of crazy things. Most of those will work in the short term. But after a while, because of the restrictions you're placing on yourself, that's what makes it unsustainable. You want something because you have this, you are a slave to your diet. You are a slave to your way of eating when you are calorie restricting every day. You know, if I never have to think, I'm on a fast day today. What I eat tomorrow, I'm not thinking about it today, but I can eat whatever I want. You know, I can have whatever I want. When you're calorie restricting every day, you have to think about the density, the calorie density of the food you're eating, because you want to try to avoid, because you're trying to avoid hunger, right? So you're like, ooh, I need to fill up on fiber. So you eat a bunch of oatmeal and bran, and you eat, you know, a ton of salad, because you're trying to fill your poor empty belly, and you're just teasing it, and you're never getting to a point where you're satisfied. I get to a point every 2 days where I could not eat another bite, and I'm happy. And you never get to that point when you're doing daily calorie restriction where you're just happy. You're just like so satisfied you just want to take a nap. It's like Thanksgiving's over, you know, and let me lay down. You don't get to that point when you're doing daily calorie restriction. So, I mean, you can eat what you want on your up days, on your feast days. That's something that does not happen with daily calorie restriction. You have to be careful all the time. And you have to constantly be thinking in terms of the calories in the food. You know? So you have to be entering it into MyFitnessPal or your calorie tracker, whatever it may be. And I think it causes, when you never stop eating, it causes more obsession with food, because you're always like, what am I going to eat next? What am I going to eat next? What am I going to eat next? You know, you finish one teaser meal and your little tiny pack of peanuts or whatever you're trying to snack on, and convince yourself that it's filling you up. And I don't have to do that. I actually am satisfied on my feast days by foods that I like, not foods that not bark off the trees and grass. You know, some other things here, and you can do the research on this. I'm just going to mention it in passing because I don't want this video to get too long. Fasting increases your metabolism, and low calories every day, the daily calorie restriction lowers it. I know that sounds like backwards land, but do the research. There are several different approaches to fasting. There are myriad ways that you can fast, and tweaks that you can make to fit fasting into your life, your social life, your, you know, whatever you have going on, your activities, your work, the demands that are placed on you. There is a way that you can make fasting work for you. When you're calorie restricting, there is one way to do it, and that is to count every calorie. That is to be obsessed with it and wear your ball and chain and count every calorie. There's only one way to do it. And it's not that way. It's not as versatile as fasting is. You know, in passing, I'll mention insulin resistance. As long as you're eating, pick up this book, The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. It talks about the hormonal effects, the hormonal causes of obesity in America. If you've ever wondered, why are kids fat today when they weren't when I was a kid? What has happened? You know, are kids not playing anymore? What's happened? How can infants even have a rate of obesity or being overweight? How can infants? They don't exercise. How can that happen? And what is happening here that people are constantly on diets and never losing weight? You'll find out here in this book. It's a great book. But when you stop eating, your body doesn't produce insulin. So it gives your body a chance to become, over time, less insulin resistant. And it's more complex than I want to talk about here. I'll save it for another video. Or you can look up one of the excellent videos on YouTube about insulin resistance. But if you're eating every day, you never get to a point where that change is made. Another thing that fasting does, metabolically, it raises human growth hormone in the body. I have noticed, and what that does is that it prevents you from losing lean mass. That's your muscle in your body while you're reducing your weight. People who do daily calorie restriction lose muscle at the same time, and quite a bit of it. They lose muscle at the same time they lose their fat. When you fast, you retain a lot more of your lean mass. You know, I'm never going to get to a point probably where I'm going to rip this shirt off and wax my chest and do all my videos in the buff like all these dudes do, these meatheads that do intermittent fasting and everything. I promise not to get to that point. I might go bottomless once or twice on the sly. But anyways, you know, I'm gaining muscle. I know it's crazy. I'm fasting every other day, eating nothing, but my arms are getting as big as my neck almost. I'm turning into a meathead. I got to watch myself. You know, as long as I keep wearing these glasses, I'll be okay. I'll defend my nerdity. But there's something happening metabolically that I'm not losing muscle while I'm fasting. It's the exact opposite of all the old wives' tales I heard from years ago. So that happens. Human growth hormone, that's the effect. It's raised by a lot while you're fasting. It is not raised when you're doing daily calorie restriction. And another thing you can look up is autophagy. Your body's natural recycling and cleanup, where your body starts eating the dead cells, the weak cells, and replacing it with new cells in your body. You can look it up, autophagy, autophagy, autophagy. And, you know, look it up, get educated about it. You can only get to an area of autophagy. The way to get into autophagy is to stop eating. Because when it comes about from a stress in your body, nutritional, where the food's not coming in and the body realizes it and it goes into autophagy and starts cleaning out the crap that's going to give you cancer. That's an oversimplification, but look it up. You know, another thing, this is bro science right here. This is the only thing I'm saying that's really bro science. A lot of people report a feeling of mental acuity, like sharpened awareness when they're fasting, and I'm one of them. I'm fasting today. I have more energy today than I did yesterday when I was eating. Now, why? I've been a couch potato before. If you've ever been a couch potato and you started an exercise program, you get about 2 weeks in, once your muscles stop being sore and you quit whining about it, but you start realizing, hey, it's like a switch is flipped on, you know, and you're like, wait a minute here, I've got more energy. I feel good. I'm ready. And you spring out of bed in the morning, you're ready to go. That's the closest I can come to that feeling that you have when you get used to fasting. That extra energy and that extra awareness mentally speaking. You're more productive because you don't have to worry about the time you save and not having to cook and not having to think about food. But lots of people feel that, and that's been around a long time, since the ancient Greeks. And so that's there. That's a benefit that you have that you don't have when you do daily calorie restriction and you're tired and cranky and cold and angry at your fellow man because you're hungry. Another thing that happens is, and I've mentioned this in a previous video, is you have an increased awareness of your relationship with food when you fast. When you take a break from food, you have time to think about, why am I eating? Am I even hungry? And why am I eating this food? And why am I craving this food? And am I bored, or am I sad, or what is, you know, why am I thinking about food so much? And unless you stop eating, I don't think you ever get to a point where you're like, where that really kicks in. The mental part of it, the psychological part of it, the stuff that goes beyond the physiological cravings and needs of your body. You know, there's other things that come to light when you start fasting that you didn't realize about yourself. And so it's an exploration. It's a discovery of your own body and your own psyche. You know, the psychology there. There's a lot of things that come into play that would make it easier or harder to lose weight in a certain way. So that's why there's no one right way. There's not one right way to lose weight. ADF might not be right for you. Fasting might not be right for you. Maybe it is easier for you to do, you know, the crap approach. Calorie restriction is primary. That might be easier for some people. There's a ton of data that says it fails in the long run. But that really brings me to the point here of this video is you have to ask yourself, what can I do? Not just what works, not just what works, but what can I do for the rest of my life? What can I do forever? Can I do what I'm doing the rest of my life? And for me, I've answered that question, yes. I can do some form of fasting the rest of my life. It may not be alternate day fasting, but there will be some kind of fasting. To me, it's the easiest, for all the reasons I've described, it's the easiest way to go with the most benefits. And my results might not be typical, but I have lost 40 pounds in 9 weeks on alternate day fasting. And I never, you think I ever did that while I was running 7 miles a day and restricting my calories and eating bunny food all the time? No way did that ever happen. I never had results like this. You know, my body feels great. Metabolically, I know I'm doing well. And psychologically, things are changing, like my relationship with food is changing. And so there's all those other benefits, but is this sustainable for the rest of my life? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And don't feel guilty if fasting doesn't work for you. But it is worth a try for a lot of people. If you've failed on the daily calorie restriction, the thing that 4 out of 5 people fail at and gain all their weight back plus some, it's worth a try. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today because it has been in the news. If you made it this far, I applaud you. I appreciate the views and your comments and questions. And I hope you guys have a good day. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we fast.